Mr. Teal.
I would say to him, Desean Brown, you deserve nothing less but the death penalty.
He walked into that courtroom in silence, but a storm followed him. One that had been building for years, tightening around a single family until something inside them finally snapped. This is where we begin. Hamilton County, Ohio. A place where tragedy is not new, but nothing had prepared anyone for the charges tied to the man standing before the judge. His name was Desean Brown, and the accusations against him carried a weight so heavy that even the courtroom walls felt tense. And yet, the tension in that room didn't belong solely to the case. It belonged to a father, sitting quietly in the back row, waiting for a chance at something he believed the system couldn't give him. In December 2020, prosecutors alleged that Desean Brown murdered his then-girlfriend, 29-year-old Nitosha Latimore, inside her apartment on Melrose Avenue. What investigators uncovered next was devastating. After the killing, Brown allegedly dumped Nitosha's body near the Purple People Bridge, and then took her 3-year-old son, Nylo Latimore, and threw him into the Ohio River, alive. Despite exhaustive searches, Nylo's body was never recovered. The details prosecutors pieced together were chilling. They linked Brown to a body bag purchased on eBay, tied the movements of his vehicle to the timeline of the crime, and built a case around planning, concealment, and the deliberate disposal of evidence. He was charged with aggravated murder, tampering with evidence, and gross abuse of a corpse. The state made it clear. They were pursuing the death penalty. Nitosha's father spoke to the press with a clarity sharpened by grief.
I would say to him, Desean Brown, you deserve nothing less but the death penalty.
Desean Brown deserves nothing less than the death penalty, no mercy at all. And inside the courtroom, another voice, quiet until it wasn't, carried that grief in a different way. At the back sat Tonio Hughes, Nylo's father. Dressed entirely in black, he waited silently as the hearing neared its end. Then, with no warning, Hughes rose from his seat, crossed the room with steady steps, and began punching the man accused of killing his child. The strikes were fast, fueled by a pain that words could never translate. Deputies sprinted to intervene, but Hughes kept fighting even as they wrestled him to the floor. It took half a dozen officers to restrain him. He was dragged away and later served 4 days in jail for contempt. Meanwhile, Desean Brown's trial is set for 2025.
Counsel, who I'll defer to in a moment, that they are now stipulating that Mr. Teal.
That moment showed a truth as old as the justice system itself. When the law moves slowly, emotion moves fast. And in the next case, that explosive emotion came not from grief, but from instability, confusion, and a sudden violent shift aimed at the one person trying to help. In Seattle, Washington, inside a King County courtroom, Christopher Teal sat beside his attorney for a competency hearing. Teal had been charged with first-degree sexual assault and unlawful imprisonment after following a woman into a dealership restroom and attacking her employees, overpowered him, and held him until police arrived. Now he was back in court, his mental state under review. Seated next to his attorney, Reed Birkeland, Teal seemed almost amused as the hearing began, watching the judge with a detached look that felt unsettling but not yet dangerous. He raised his arm toward Birkeland, prompting a deputy to gently guide him back. But then the judge kept speaking. Teal stared forward, and in an instant, everything changed. Without warning, Teal lunged sideways and punched his own lawyer in the head. The courtroom detonated into chaos. Deputies tackled him to the ground as the judge froze mid-sentence. A spit hood was pulled over Teal's head, and he was dragged from the courtroom, still thrashing, still shouting. At his next hearing, deputies took no chances. Teal was heavily restrained, and his counsel was replaced. The process continued with distance and caution. Eventually, he was sentenced to 8.5 years in prison for his charges. His courtroom outburst didn't help him, didn't sway the outcome, and didn't change the facts. But it revealed a truth about the courtroom. Control is not optional. When someone loses it, the entire room becomes unpredictable within seconds. And then there are defendants who don't break from grief or mental instability. They break because anger has always been the language they speak. That brings us to one of the most violent courtroom eruptions in recent years. In Australia, rugby player Jesse Rose stood before a judge after a hotel confrontation spiraled into a dangerous attack. Rose had gotten into an argument with another customer and grabbed them by the genitals, refusing to calm down even when security stepped in. He spit directly into the face of a security guard. One moment that changed everything. The guard tried to swing back but missed. Falling to the floor, Rose seized that moment. He grabbed a schooner glass and threw it directly at the guard's head, causing a depressed skull fracture that required extensive medical treatment. Rose was arrested and charged with reckless wounding. His lawyers argued he had changed. They said he had a steady job, a new relationship, and no violent incidents since that night. They begged for leniency. But the judge refused. The injury was too serious, the behavior too violent. Rose was sentenced to 14 months in prison, and that's when he snapped. He kicked open the dock door so violently that the entire courtroom froze. He stepped back, grabbed a chair, and hurled it with full force. Officers rushed him, one going to the floor as another got Rose into a headlock. His girlfriend screamed, begging him to stop, but the situation was well beyond control. Backup flooded the room. Rose was dragged out, still resisting, still burning with rage. And he didn't learn. 3 years later, he returned to court for threatening to spray a woman's home with bullets. 3 defendants. 3 different emotional detonations. One overarching truth. A courtroom is a pressure chamber where grief, rage, fear, and justice collide. Some explode because their hearts are shattered. Some explode because their minds are unstable. And some explode because anger is the only way they know how to speak. But once the cameras roll and the gavel hits, every outburst becomes part of the record, a permanent echo of what justice truly looks like when tension finally breaks. If you want more cinematic courtroom documentaries, real cases, real footage, real consequences, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and comment which case you want next. Inside these walls, everything can change in 3 seconds. And the quietest person in the room can become the loudest story.